You've seen the dating shows, the perfectly lit confessionals, the strategically placed tears, the will they want they manufactured drama. But what if everything you thought you knew about reality TV love was a carefully constructed lie? What if the real story wasn't between the spotlight-stealing contestants, but in the shadows where authenticity hides? William Roberts, tech mogul and self-proclaimed rationalist, believed he could algorithm his way to love. With a $10 million production budget and a team of psychologists, he launched Millionaire'S Choice, a dating show, promising to match him with his perfect partner through carefully engineered challenges. Love is just another data problem to solve, he declared during the show's much-hyped premiere. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. The most genuine connection of his life wasn't with any of the 20 carefully curated contestants. It was with Mia Garcia, the quiet camerawoman whose observational skills captured every micro-expression of deceit from the show's participants. While William spent hours analyzing compatibility charts, Mia was documenting the real story, the forced laughs, the rehearsed tears, and the fleeting moments of honesty that slipped through the production's carefully constructed facade. As the show's ratings soared, so did William's confusion. Why did these scripted romances feel so hollow? Why did he keep finding excuses to linger in the control room where Mia worked her magic with a camera? And why did her occasional observations about the contestants' behavior feel more valuable than all the psychological assessments combined? This isn't just another dating show critique. This is a story about how real connection defies algorithms and scripting. It's about the quiet revolution of authentic emotion in a world obsessed with manufactured perfection. And it's about how sometimes the person who sees you most clearly isn't the one chasing the spotlight, but the one documenting the performance. Stay tuned to discover how William's quest for the perfect algorithm led him to the one person who could teach him that love isn't found in data points but in the margins between the frames. William Roberts, with his signature crisp white shirt and perfectly knotted tie, stood before the camera crew with an air of confidence that masked his underlying anxiety. "This is going to be the most authentic dating show ever," he declared, his British accent carrying a hint of excitement that surprised even himself. The producers nodded eagerly, their eyes gleaming with the potential for viral content and soaring ratings. Little did they know, William's unexpected love journey was about to take a detour they couldn't script. "I'm not looking for someone who can complete challenges or charm the audience," he explained during the pre-production meeting, his fingers drumming a nervous rhythm on the table. "I'm searching for an authentic connection, something that can't be manufactured or rehearsed." The room fell silent as the Millionaire's Choice host realized he'd just described the exact opposite of what reality TV typically delivered. Behind the cameras, Mia Garcia adjusted her equipment with the precision of someone who'd spent years perfecting their craft. Her quiet efficiency earned her the nickname Quiet Heroine among the crew, though she remained blissfully unaware of the title. "Are you sure about this?" she overheard a producer ask William during a break. "These reality shows are all hype and no heart," came the skeptical response. William's shoulders stiffened, but he maintained his composure. "Heart over hype is exactly what I'm after," he insisted, though doubt began to creep in as he watched contestants rehearse their lines and practice their smiles. Mia noticed his tension and made a subtle adjustment to the lighting, softening the harsh shadows that highlighted his uncertainty. "Thanks," he muttered, catching her eye for the first time. She nodded and turned back to her equipment, unaware their off-camera chemistry had just sparked. The first episode script promised dramatic introductions and instant connections. But William found himself distracted by Mia's methodical adjustments to the camera angles. "You're breaking character," a producer hissed when he glanced her way for the third time during a contestant's confession segment. "Sorry," he mumbled, forcing his attention back to the woman gushing about his millionaire lifestyle. Later, Reviewing footage, William paused the playback. "That take felt forced," he announced unexpectedly. Mia, monitoring from the control room, shared a knowing look with the director. "They're all a bit performed," she offered cautiously when William visited the control room later. He leaned against the doorway, their first real conversation beginning in the hum of computer fans and the glow of multiple monitors. As filming progressed, William developed a routine of visiting the control room between scenes, citing a desire for authentic feedback rather than the polished takes the producers preferred. Mia's candid assessments became his favorite part of each day. She's compensating for her lack of education by overemphasizing intellect, Mia observed about one contestant during a particularly awkward debate segment. William laughed, the sound surprising them both. "You're brutal," he said, earning a rare smile from the usually reserved camerawoman. "Just calling it how I see it," she replied, her voice carrying a hint of playfulness that made him want to know more about the woman behind the cameras. Unbeknownst to them both, their growing dynamic was being documented by the crew notes passed during coffee breaks, speculations during editing sessions. "You two have more genuine interaction than the contestants," the gaffer teased one evening, his comment hanging in the air between them as the set lights dimmed for the night. By the end of the first filming week, William found himself dreading the contestant interviews that had once excited him. The carefully curated stories, the rehearsed laughter, the calculated tiercel of it paled in comparison to the real reactions he witnessed in the control room. Mia's unfiltered observations had become a lifeline, grounding him in the authenticity he claimed to seek. During a rare moment alone on the rooftop set, he confessed, "I think I'm starting to understand what real connection feels like. And it's not happening in front of these cameras." Mia studied the city lights, reflecting in his eyes, her heart skipping a beat before she replied, "Maybe the problem isn't the contestants. Maybe it's the format itself." Their conversation was interrupted by the evening schedule call, leaving unspoken the realization that their behind-the-scenes romance had already begun to eclipse the manufactured relationships the show was supposed to showcase. The crew buzzed with speculation as William returned to the set, his mind no longer fully on the women competing for his heart. The grand ballroom of the Roosevelt Hotel buzzed with anticipation as 20 elegantly dressed women gathered for the first taping of Millionaire's Choice. Each contestant had been meticulously curated. Profiles highlighted humanitarian ventures, artistic talents, and intellect that would appeal to William's philanthropic image. Contestant number 7, a petite brunette with a law degree in environmental policy, adjusted her pearl necklace nervously while confiding in her neighbor, "I've rehearsed these answers for months, but I feel like I'm auditioning for a part rather than being myself." William, positioned on a raised platform beneath a crystal chandelier, forced a smile as the cameras began to roll. His crisp Armani suit suddenly felt restrictive, the spotlight's heat uncomfortably personal. "Welcome to Millionaire's Choice," he began, his British accent carrying a hint of stage fright he quickly masked. Mia, stationed behind camera 3 at the edge of the room, noted how his gaze briefly flickered toward her before settling on the contestants. "Is already distracted," she murmured to the sound technician, capturing the moment William's eyes lost focus mid-sentence. The first challenge involved a debate on ethical consumerism, a topic William had championed in his tech ventures. Contestants delivered rehearsed opinions, their voices rising with practiced passion. William nodded politely, his mind elsewhere. Later, reviewing footage, he paused on a segment where contestant 14 had stumbled over her words. "That was the most genuine thing I've seen all night," he remarked, surprising the editors. Mia's camera had caught his fleeting smile. A moment of authentic connection in an evening of calculated performances. The producers, reviewing ratings projections, declared the first episode a success. Viewers loved the drama. The lead producer announced already planning next week's confession. Booth reveals. William, however, found himself distracted by a different kind of drama, one unfolding behind the cameras, where Mia's unfiltered observations were beginning to outweigh the scripted narratives. He caught himself watching her more than the contestants. During breaks, noticing how her focused expression never wavered, unlike the women who kept glancing at the camera, even when not filming. "You're breaking character," he heard a producer hiss at contestant number 5, who had been mid-laugh. William's gaze shifted to Mia, who was already adjusting her camera angle to capture the moment's authenticity. That evening, as the crew began dismantling the set, William lingered in the control room, discussing lighting choices with Mia. "You have a gift for capturing real moments," he said, his tone casual, but his eyes intent. She adjusted her headset, nonchalantly hiding the blush that warmed her cheeks. "It's easier when subjects aren't aware they're being watched," she replied, their conversation lingering as the crew worked around them. The producers, oblivious to the growing dynamic, continued planning the next episode's surprises, unaware that William's interest was already shifting from the contestants to the woman who documented their every move. Mia Garcia maneuvered through the bustling set with the quiet efficiency that had earned her a reputation as the crew's most reliable asset. Her equipment, a sleek black camera slung over her shoulder, seemed an extension of herself as she anticipated each scene's requirements before they arose. Contestant number 12 adjusted her scarf for the 5th time, unaware Mia had already captured the subtle tremor in her hands during the previous take. "She's nervous, but hiding it well," Mia noted to the director, her voice low but clear over the headset. William, observing from his position near the craft services table, found himself drawn to the camerawoman's focused demeanor. "How do you stay so calm amidst all this chaos?" he asked during a rare break, his presence surprising her. She glanced up, her thoughtful brown eyes meeting his. "I focus on the details," she replied, gesturing to a forgotten script page beneath. "A contestant's heel." William followed her gaze, noting the crumpled papyrus mist prop from the morning's filming. "Most people miss that," he said, impressed. "Most people aren't paying attention," she countered, her tone gentle but firm. Their conversation was interrupted by a frantic call for reshoots. Contestant number 5 had delivered her lines with all the enthusiasm of a robot. Mia adjusted her position effortlessly, framing William's polite yet detached response to the contestants' efforts. "You seem disengaged," she commented later, during a rare moment alone in the equipment storage room. William leaned against a stack of lighting grids, the fluorescent overhead casting harsh shadows on his face. "I expected more realness," he admitted, frustration coloring his usually measured tone. Mia studied him, her camera resting momentarily on her shoulder. "Realness doesn't perform well under these lights," she said, gesturing to the industrial fixtures above. "Maybe that's the problem," he replied, the words hanging between them as the set's intercom blared with the next scene's instructions. The crew scrambled to reposition props, while Mia and William stood in the suddenly charged silence, neither acknowledging the shift in the air. "Let's get back to work," she said finally, her professionalism reasserting itself as easily as slipping on a glove. William nodded, following her lead as they returned to their respective role shifts, as the smiling bachelor, hers as the unflinching documentarian of moments both staged and sincere. The producers, reviewing footage later that night, praised Mia's ability to capture the tension between William and the contestants, blissfully unaware the tension they referenced had a different source entirely. During the second episode's filming, the contestants were tasked with a charity event planning challenge. William watched as each woman showcased her organizational skills, her strategic thinking, and her ability to align with his philanthropic interests. "This is going well," the producer whispered, but William's attention kept drifting to Mia's station. She had set up an additional camera angle that captured the contestants' genuine reactions when they thought the cameras were off. A stolen glance of irritation here, a relieved sigh there. These off-camera moments tell a different story, he noted. During the daily review, pointing to a clip where contestant 9 had rolled her eyes after a forced compliment, Mia watched him with a mix of amusement and caution. "People forget they're always on camera in this setup," she said, her voice low. "You're becoming my reality check," he said, surprising them both with his honesty. The crew around them continued their work, oblivious to the subtle shift in the room's dynamic. William's routine evolved subtly over the following week. He began arriving 30 minutes early to each filming session, timing his arrival to coincide with Mia's setup routine. "Same spot today?" he'd ask, nodding to her preferred camera position near the southwest corner of the set. She'd respond with a brief smile and a shrug, her focus already on the lens calibration. "You're developing a pattern," she observed on the third day, her tone light but watchful. He leaned against the nearby lighting fixture, the warmth of the bulbs, contrasting with the studio's chilled air. "I prefer consistency," he replied, mirroring her earlier comment about his own behavior. Their exchanges remained professional, yet increasingly charged with unspoken curiosity. During a particularly chaotic rehearsal, when contestant number 9's dress malfunctioned spectacularly and the director's patience frayed, Mia remained a pillar of calm. "Breathe," she murmured to the flustered assistant director, her hand steady on his shoulder as she guided him through a forgotten lighting adjustment. William watched from across the room, struck by how her presence seemed to anchor those around her. That evening, reviewing footage alone in his penthouse, he paused on a clip from 2 weeks prior. There in the background, Mia adjusted a contestant's microphone with a patience he'd never managed himself. "You're everywhere in these frames," he said aloud, tracing her figure on the screen. The producers, in their strategy meeting the following morning, debated cutting a subplot focusing on contestant number 14's abrupt personality shift. "Mia's footage shows inconsistencies in that contestant's story," William interjected unexpectedly, surprising the room into silence. "How so?" The lead producer asked, intrigued despite herself. William gestured to the monitor where Mia's camera had captured minute details. The way contestant number 14's smile never reached her eyes during certain topics, the slight tension in her posture when discussing her alleged charity work. "It's in the micro-expressions," he explained, channeling Mia's earlier assessments. The producers exchanged glances. William's attention to such minutiae was unprecedented. "You're becoming quite the behind-the-scenes expert," the director teased, unaware William's tuition came from a source never mentioned in production meetings. By week's end, William found himself defending Mia's camera angles during editing sessions. "Her perspective captures the authentic connection we promised viewers," he argued, his confidence growing with each rebuke to the producer's aesthetic demands. Mia, observing from the control room's corner, noted the change in his demeanor, the way he leaned forward when discussing her work, the intensity in his eyes when dismissing suggestions that altered her footage's intent. "He's breaking his own rules," the editor whispered during a coffee break, her observation hanging in the air as Mia adjusted her camera's focus, ready, as always, to document whatever happened next. During the third episode's beachside challenge, William noticed Mia wading knee-deep into the Pacific surf to get a better angle of contestant number 15's sandcastle building efforts. The water soaked the hem of her uniform, but she remained focused, her camera steady despite the waves. "You'll catch a cold," he called over the crashing waves, surprising her. She glanced up, her tousled hair framing a face that seemed suddenly vulnerable without her usual headset. "Good footage is worth a little discomfort," she shouted back, the wind carrying her words. William watched her until the director called cut, the moment lingering in his memory long after the scene concluded. That evening, as they reviewed footage together, he pointed to the clip where she'd stood in the surf. "That shot was perfect," he said, his praise genuine. "Thanks," she replied, her cheeks flushing as she quickly changed the subject to the next scene's lighting requirements. The producers, oblivious to this growing connection, continued planning the next episode's surprises, unaware that William's interest was already shifting from the contestants to the woman who documented their every move. The routine developed, almost organically. After each day's filming, William would find himself lingering in the control room, citing a need to review footage, but staying long after the producers had left. Mia, ever the professional, would stay to assist, her focus on the monitors hiding the way her pulse quickened in his presence. Contestant number 12's laughter during the art challenge was forced, she remarked during one such session, her finger pausing the playback. William leaned closer to the screen, noticing the slight tension in the contestant's jaw. "How can you tell?" he asked, genuinely curious. "Her eyes don't crinkle when she laughs genuinely," Mia explained, her voice calm. "But her cheeks faintly pink. It's a Duchenne smile thing." William nodded, impressed by her attention to detail. "And contestant number 5 keeps adjusting her scarf to hide a port wine stain on her neck," she added, pulling up another clip. "She's self-conscious about it, but none of the producers noticed." William watched the footage, seeing beyond the contestants. Rehearsed smile to the nervous gesture Mia had identified. "You're like a human lie detector," he said, half joking. Mia shrugged, but her smile betrayed her pride. "People reveal themselves in the margins," she said, echoing a phrase she'd repeated often. Over the following days, their post-filming discussions became a ritual. Mia would point out the contestants' genuine moments, the way contestant number 14 had helped a rival steady her trembling hands during a cooking challenge, or how contestant number 7 had discreetly shared her notes with a struggling competitor. William listened intently, his earlier detachment transforming into genuine interest. "The producers want drama," he said during one late-night session, "but these small acts of kindness are the real story." Mia nodded, her camera resting forgotten on the desk between them. "But kindness doesn't always make good TV," she replied, her tone carrying a hint of frustration. William leaned back in his chair, studying her profile, illuminated by the monitor's glow. "Maybe it should," he said, surprising them both with the quiet conviction in his voice. The next morning, during the producers' strategy meeting, William advocated for highlighting these quieter moments. Viewers might respond better to authentic connection than manufactured conflict, he argued, though his confidence wavered under the producers' skeptical glances. "Our focus groups love the drama," the lead producer countered, but William shook his head. "Our focus groups aren't here right now. Trust me on this." The room fell silent, a wealthy bachelor challenging the producers. On their own show, Mia watched from the doorway, her presence silent but supportive. The producers eventually agreed to a compromise, weaving Mia's identified moments into the narrative as hidden depth segments. "You're altering the show's DNA," the director warned, but William simply smiled. "Evolution, not alteration," he replied, his gaze briefly meeting Mia's across the room. Back in the control room that evening, William found Mia reviewing footage alone. "The producers agreed to include more of those genuine moments," he said, his tone carrying uncharacteristic excitement. She looked up, her expression unreadable, but her eyes bright. "That's a win," she said, and for a moment the air between them crackled with unspoken possibility. By the 4th episode, William's transformation was becoming noticeable to those paying attention. His interactions with contestants grew more genuine, his questions more probing, as he sought the authentic connection he'd begun to recognize. During a vineyard tour challenge, he surprised everyone, including himself, by asking contestant number 15 about her failed small business rather than her success story. "Why did it fail?" he asked, his tone earnest. The contestant hesitated, then spoke of supply chain issues and personal health struggles, her voice cracking with vulnerability. Mia captured the moment from a distance, her lens steady despite the lump in her throat. "That was powerful," William said later, during their now customary post-filming discussion. "You think so?" Mia replied, her tone teasing but warm. "I think you're rubbing off on me," he admitted with a grin. She laughed, the sound light and genuine, a rare moment of relaxation between them. The producers noticed the shift too. "He's becoming too soft," the lead producer complained during a strategy meeting. "Soft is relatable," William countered, his defense of the approach surprising even himself. He found himself advocating for contestants who showed vulnerability over those who performed effortlessly, a stance that aligned remarkably with Mia's observations. "You're turning into quite the romantic," the editor teased during a coffee break. William shook his head. "No, I'm just starting to see what's real." During a rare weekend break from filming, William wandered into a small bookstore near the studio, his mind preoccupied. He absent-mindedly browsed the psychology section until a familiar voice startled him. "The authenticity paradox? Interesting choice." Mia stood beside him, a weathered copy of The Art of Photography in her hands. He hadn't noticed her enter. "I need to understand what I'm missing," he said, gesturing to the book. She raised an eyebrow. "You think the contestants are inauthentic? I think the format forces inauthenticity," he replied, his frustration evident. "But you keep showing me glimpses of their real selves," he added, his voice dropping. Mia studied him for a moment before placing her book on the shelf. "The real self isn't always pretty," she said, her tone carrying a hint of warning. "But it's always worth seeing," he replied, their eyes locking in a moment charged with unspoken tension. They parted awkwardly, the encounter lingering in William's thoughts as he returned to his penthouse that evening. The dynamic between William and Mia continued to evolve in subtle yet undeniable ways. During a tense editing session, William caught himself stealing glances at Mia as she focused intently on the monitors, her brow furrowed in concentration, completely unaware of his attention. Their interactions, once purely professional, now carried an undercurrent of tension that neither could ignore. "This footage from the beach challenge is perfect," Mia said, her voice steady despite the rapid heartbeat she felt whenever he was near. William noted the way her eyes lit up when she spoke passionately about a particular shot, a shot that captured a genuine moment between two contestants, a moment she believed exemplified the authentic connection he claimed to seek. "You have an incredible eye for detail," he complimented her one evening as they reviewed the day's footage. Mia's cheeks flushed slightly, a rare display of vulnerability. "Just doing my job," she replied, though her tone lacked its usual nonchalance. The growing tension between them was palpable, yet both remained hesitant to acknowledge it. During a brief coffee break, William found himself drawn to the way Mia's hands moved as she spoke, her gestures both animated and controlled. "You're incredible at what you do," he said again, this time with more intensity. Mia's gaze met his, and for a moment, the air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken emotions. They quickly shifted the conversation back to work, but the connection had been established, and neither could deny the growing pull they felt. As the show progressed, William increasingly found himself distracted by Mia's presence, his focus shifting from the contestants to the woman behind the camera who seemed to see through the facade of the reality show. Their subtle conversations grew more frequent, each exchange charged with a newfound awareness. Mia, Ever the professional tried to maintain her composure, but the growing attraction was becoming harder to ignore. She replayed his compliments in her mind, his words sparking a warmth she couldn't quite contain. The tension between them reached a peak during a late-night editing session when William, unable to contain his curiosity, asked Mia what she truly thought about the show's direction. Her honest response, laced with frustration, caught him off guard and ignited a passionate debate that blurred the lines between their professional and personal boundaries. "You're not looking for love," she asserted, her voice steady, but her eyes revealing her intensity. "You're looking for something real, something this format can't provide." William's reply was swift, his tone carrying a hint of vulnerability. "And what if I said I've found it in the most unexpected places?" The charged atmosphere hung between them, a testament to the growing connection that threatened to disrupt the carefully constructed world of Millionaire's Choice. The growing tension between William and Mia began to affect their work. During a particularly emotional confessional scene with contestant number 14, William's mind wandered to Mia's earlier assessments of the woman's authenticity. His inability to focus drew a stern look from the director, who was oblivious to the source of his distraction. "We need to keep moving," the producer urged, but William's thoughts remained firmly on Mia. That evening, as they reviewed footage together, William found himself commenting more on Mia's camera work than on the contestants' performances. "Your angle here captured her genuine hesitation," he pointed out, his finger hovering near hers on the screen. Mia quickly pulled back, her face flushing as she muttered a professional thank you. The unspoken words hung heavily in the air between them, a testament to the growing connection that neither seemed willing to address directly. Despite the mounting tension, they maintained a facade of professionalism, though their interactions had become increasingly charged. During a brief moment alone in the equipment storage room, William turned to Mia with a question that had been plaguing him. "Do you ever think that maybe the real story isn't the one we're filming?" His voice carried a vulnerability that surprised her, and Mia found herself hesitating before answering. "The real story is always there," she replied, her tone gentle. "You just have to be willing to see it." Their eyes locked for a moment, and the air between them seemed to spark with the weight of unsaid emotions. William opened his mouth to say something more, but the sound of approaching footsteps pulled them back to reality. They quickly resumed their roles, the moment shattered but not forgotten. As the days passed, the tension between them continued to build, each stolen glance and subtle conversation adding to the growing connection that threatened to overshadow the reality show they were all part of. The crew began to notice the shift in dynamics, though they attributed it to the high-stress environment of production. Little did they know the real story, the one unfolding behind the cameras, was gaining momentum, and it was a story that neither William nor Mia could control. The producers, meanwhile, were oblivious to the brewing connection between the star and the camerawoman. They continued to plan elaborate challenges and dramatic reveals, unaware that the most compelling narrative was developing right under their noses. William's growing distraction, however, wasn't entirely missed. During a strategy meeting, the lead producer raised concerns about his wandering focus. "We're counting on you to deliver a compelling narrative," she reminded him sternly. William nodded, his mind elsewhere as he thought of Mia's quiet insights and the genuine connection he felt with her. "Trust me," he replied, his confidence bolstered by the strength of his growing feelings. "The best story is yet to unfold." And as the show progressed, William became increasingly certain that the real story wasn't the one the producers had planned. It was the one happening behind the scenes, where stolen glances and subtle conversations were weaving a narrative far more powerful than any scripted romance. The tension reached a breaking point during a high-stakes elimination scene. As contestant number 9 tearfully accepted her departure, William's thoughts were entirely with Mia, who had captured the genuine emotion of the moment with her usual precision. He found himself watching her more than the contestant, noticing the way her eyes welled up slightly at the woman's vulnerability, a reaction she quickly masked. "You're becoming too emotionally invested," he commented later during their private debrief. Mia's laugh was self-deprecating but lacked its usual warmth. It's hard not to be when you witness so many raw emotions. William's gaze dropped to her hands, which were fidgeting with a pen in a way he'd never seen before. "I think it's more than the contestants affecting you," he said softly. Mia looked up, her expression guarded. "What are you suggesting?" she asked, her tone carrying a hint of challenge. William leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I think you're affected by someone closer to home." The moment stretched between them, charged with the weight of his implication. Mia's composure wavered for the briefest instant before she regained control. "We should get back to work," she said, standing abruptly and ending the conversation. But the seed had been planted, and neither could ignore the growing connection that was slowly but surely altering the trajectory of the show they were both part of. The tension reached a breaking point during a high-stakes elimination scene. As contestant number 9 tearfully accepted her departure, William's thoughts were entirely with Mia, who had captured the genuine emotion of the moment with her usual precision. He found himself watching her more than the contestant, noticing the way her eyes welled up slightly at the woman's vulnerability, a reaction she quickly masked. "You're becoming too emotionally invested," he commented later during their private debrief. Mia's laugh was self-deprecating but lacked its usual warmth. It's hard not to be when you witness so many raw emotions. William's gaze dropped to her hands, which were fidgeting with a pen in a way he'd never seen before. "I think it's more than the contestants affecting you," he said softly. Mia looked up, her expression guarded. "What are you suggesting?" she asked, her tone carrying a hint of challenge. William leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I think you're affected by someone closer to home." The moment stretched between them, charged with the weight of his implication. Mia's composure wavered for the briefest instant before she regained control. "We should get back to work," she said, standing abruptly and ending the conversation. But the seed had been planted, and neither could ignore the growing connection that was slowly but surely altering the trajectory of the show they were both part of. William began to question the artificiality of the show versus the real connection he was building with Mia. During a particularly scripted scene where contestant number 12 delivered a rehearsed confession of love, William's mind wandered to Mia's honest assessments and the genuine moments she captured. "This feels hollow," he muttered to himself, adjusting his tie as he prepared for the next take. The producer overheard him. "Hollow is what viewers crave," she retorted, her tone dismissive. "They want drama, not reality." William's frustration grew with each passing day. The contestants' performances, once captivating, now felt forced and insincere compared to Mia's quiet authenticity. "Why are we celebrating scripted emotions while real ones go unnoticed?" he challenged during a producers' meeting, his patience wearing thin. The room fell silent. "You're overthinking this," the lead producer finally said, though her uncertainty was evident. William shook his head. "No, I'm starting to realize what's truly valuable." That evening, as they reviewed footage alone, William turned to Mia with a question that had been plaguing him. "Do you ever think that maybe the real story isn't the one we're filming?" His voice carried a vulnerability that surprised her, and Mia found herself hesitating before answering. "The real story is always there," she replied, her tone gentle. "You just have to be willing to see it." Their eyes locked for a moment, and the air between them seemed to spark with the weight of unsaid. emotions. William opened his mouth to say something more, but the sound of approaching footsteps pulled them back to reality. They quickly resumed their roles, the moment shattered, but not forgotten. As the days passed, the tension between them continued to build, each stolen glance and subtle conversation adding to the growing connection that threatened to overshadow the reality show they were all part of. The crew began to notice the shift in dynamics, though they attributed it to the high-stress environment of production. Little did they know, the real story, the one unfolding behind the cameras, was gaining momentum, and it was a story that neither William nor Mia could control. The producers, meanwhile, were oblivious to the brewing connection between the star and the camerawoman. They continued to plan elaborate challenges and dramatic reveals, unaware that the most compelling narrative was developing right under their noses. William's growing distraction, however, wasn't entirely missed. During a strategy meeting, the lead producer raised concerns about his wandering focus. "We're counting on you to deliver a compelling narrative," she reminded him sternly. William nodded, his mind elsewhere as he thought of Mia's quiet insights and the genuine connection he felt with her. "Trust me," he replied, his confidence bolstered by the strength of his growing feelings. The best story is yet to unfold, and as the show progressed, William became increasingly certain that the real story wasn't the one the producers had planned. It was the one happening behind the scenes, where stolen glances and subtle conversations were weaving a narrative far more powerful than any scripted romance. The final challenge was a charity gala, designed to showcase the contestants' alignment with William's philanthropic values. William, however, found himself distracted throughout the event. During a moment when contestant number 14 was delivering a passionate speech about environmental conservation, a cause close to William's heart, his attention kept drifting to Mia, who was capturing the scene with her usual precision. "You're not listening," contestant number 14 said suddenly, her voice carrying a hint of frustration. William snapped back to attention. "I'm sorry," he said, realizing his mistake. "I was just thinking." The contestant's expression softened. "About her?" she asked, her tone gentle. William hesitated before nodding. "I think I've lost sight of what's real," he admitted quietly. The contestant smiled sadly. "Welcome to the club." That evening, as William reviewed the footage alone in his penthouse, he paused on a clip from earlier in the day. There, in the background, Mia had captured a genuine moment between two contestants, a moment of vulnerability that had gone unnoticed amidst the show's manufactured drama. "This is what I've been missing," he said aloud, tracing the image on the screen. He knew then that the show's artificiality had been overshadowed by the real connection he'd been building with Mia. The producers, reviewing the same footage, praised the emotional depth of the scene, unaware that William's attention was entirely on the woman behind the camera. "You're becoming quite the romantic," the editor teased during a late-night session. William shook his head. "No, I'm just starting to see what's real." And with that realization, the stage was set for a plot twist ending that no one saw coming. The producer's suspicions began to surface during the editing of the charity gala episode. As they reviewed footage of William's distracted performance, they noticed something they hadn't anticipated, the growing chemistry between him and Mia. "Look at this shot," the lead producer said, pausing the playback. William and Mia were both focused on a monitor, their shoulders nearly touching as they discussed a scene. The intimacy of the moment was undeniable. "This isn't in the script," the producer remarked, her tone sharp. "It's called collaboration," the editor replied, though his usual confidence wavered. "Collaboration doesn't involve that kind of body language," the producer countered, her eyes narrowing. "Mia's been with the show since the beginning," the director interjected, attempting to defend his crew member. "And now she's becoming a distraction," The producer shot back, "We can't have the star developing feelings for a crew member. It's bad for the narrative we've built." The producers scheduled a private meeting with Mia the following morning. "We've noticed some chemistry between you and William," the lead producer began, her tone formal. Mia's pulse quickened, but she maintained her composure. "We're professionals," she replied, her voice steady. "Our relationship is strictly work-related." The producer leaned forward. "It might seem that way to you, but the footage tells a different story. We need you to keep your distance from now on, for the sake of the show." Mia's mind raced. She understood the implications. Her job was on the line. "He'll make sure it doesn't affect the footage," she promised, though internally she was reeling. "See that it doesn't," the producer said, ending the meeting. That evening, Mia arrived at the studio early, her thoughts consumed by the producer's warning. William noticed her unusual silence during filming. "Are you all right?" he asked during a break, his concern genuine. Mia forced a smile. "Just focusing on the job," she replied, her tone dismissive. William wasn't convinced. "Something's bothering you," he insisted. Mia hesitated, then said quietly, "The producers want me to back off." William's expression darkened. "Because of us?" Mia nodded. "They think our interactions are affecting the show." William's jaw tightened. "They don't get to dictate who I connect with," he said, his voice low but firm. Mia's heart raced at his words. "It's not that simple. My job is on the line here." William's gaze held hers, intense and unwavering. "My feelings for you aren't going to change because they say so." The moment hung between them, charged with unspoken promises. Before Mia could respond, the director called for the next scene, pulling them back into the show's artificial reality. That night, as William reviewed footage alone, he paused on a clip from the producers' meeting. Mia's composed exterior had masked her true feelings, but he'd seen the flicker of hurt in her eyes. "This isn't over," he said to the empty room, his resolve hardening. The following morning, William arrived at the producer's office unannounced. "We need to talk about Mia," he stated, his tone brooking no argument. The producers exchanged glances. "We've already discussed this," the lead producer began, but William cut her off. "No, you've discussed what you think is best for the show. I'm here to tell you what's best for the story and for me." The room fell silent as William laid out his case, his confidence surprising even himself. "The chemistry between Mia and me isn't a distraction. It's the most authentic thing about this production. If you want to deliver on the promise of Millionaire's Choice, you'll let this story unfold naturally." The producers were taken aback by his passion. "You're risking everything on this," the director warned. William nodded. "I'd rather have something real than manufactured perfection." The producers reluctantly agreed to a compromise, allowing Mia to remain on set, but with strict boundaries. "This is your last chance," the lead producer warned. William left the meeting with a mixture of relief and determination. As he made his way to the set, he found Mia adjusting her camera, her usual focus slightly off. "I talked to them," he said, approaching her. Mia looked up, her expression guarded. "And," William smiled, "we get to keep working together. But we have to be careful." Mia's tension visibly eased. "Thank you," she said, her voice soft. William's hand brushed hers as he reached for a nearby tripod. "Always," he replied, the word carrying weight beyond its simple meaning. The crew returned to work, unaware of the silent promise that had just been exchanged. The show went on, but for William and Mia, everything had changed. The producer's warning had forced them to confront their feelings, and while the path ahead was uncertain, they both knew this unexpected connection was worth the risk. The producer's warning hung heavily over Mia as filming resumed. She threw herself into her work, her camera capturing every angle with mechanical precision, though her usual creative flair seemed dampened. William noticed the change immediately. "You're holding back," he commented during a rare quiet moment between scenes. Mia glanced up from her equipment. "Just following orders," she replied, her tone neutral. William's frustration began to simmer. He'd fought to keep her on the project, and now she was pulling away. "This isn't you," he said, his voice low but insistent. "You're the one who taught me to see the real moments. Don't start ignoring them now." Mia's composure wavered. "It's not that simple," she whispered, her eyes flickering to the producer's observation. "Booth." William followed her gaze, his jaw tightening at the watchful presence. That evening, during a tense strategy meeting, the producers raised concerns about Mia's recent footage. "Her work has lost its edge," the lead producer claimed, citing several clips where Mia's usual innovative angles had been replaced with safe, standard shots. "She's becoming complacent," the editor added. William's patience snapped. "Her work is fine," he argued, his tone sharp. "Actually, it's not," the producer countered. "She's letting personal feelings interfere with her professional duties." The room fell silent as the weight of the accusation hung in the air. "You're saying she's unprofessional?" William's voice carried a dangerous edge. "We're saying she's becoming a liability," the producer clarified. "Then you're blind to what truly matters," William replied, his confidence unwavering. "Her perspective is the most authentic thing this show has. Without her, you're back to manufacturing hollow narratives." The producers exchanged uneasy glances. William's defiance was unprecedented, and they hadn't anticipated his willingness to clash with them so directly. "We need to consider the show's integrity," the director said cautiously. "Her integrity is exactly what this show needs," William insisted. "Fire her and you lose the one element that's kept me invested from the start." The room fell silent as the producers weighed his words. Finally, the lead producer spoke. "Well, give her one more chance. But any further slip, and she's off the project permanently." William nodded, his relief tempered by resolve. "That's all I'm asking." He left the meeting and made his way to Mia's station, where she was methodically checking her equipment. "They're giving you another chance," he said, his presence filling the space around her. Mia didn't look up. "I appreciate it," she replied, her voice devoid of emotion. William placed a hand on her shoulder, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Don't thank me. This isn't about me. It's about you and your gift for capturing truth in a sea of artifice. Don't let them make you compromise that." Mia's eyes welled with unexpected tears. "I'm trying to protect what we have," she whispered. William's thumb brushed a tear from her cheek, a tender gesture that left both breathless. "Then fight for it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Fight for what's real." The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken promises, until the director's voice broke the silence. 5 minutes to next scene." William stepped back, his touch lingering as he walked away. Mia took a deep breath, her resolve strengthening. She adjusted her camera with renewed determination, ready to prove that authenticity couldn't be silenced. As filming resumed, Mia's usual creativity returned, her shots once again capturing the genuine emotions beneath the show's polished surface. The producers noticed the difference, but attributed it to her renewed focus, unaware of the true source of her reinvigorated passion. William, meanwhile, found himself increasingly drawn to Mia's renewed vigor, his own feelings deepening with each passing day. The show continued, but for William and Mia, everything had shifted. They were no longer just participants in a manufactured narrative. They were co-conspirators in a silent revolution against the show's artificiality. And as the final episodes approached, both knew their journey was leading toward a climax that would change everything. As the final episodes approached, William's feelings for Mia deepened exponentially. Each stolen glance, each whispered conversation during breaks, and each moment of collaboration intensified the connection between them. Yet the specter of the show's contract loomed large. its clear stipulation against relationships between cast and crew, a constant reminder of the obstacles they faced. "We need to talk," William said one evening as they reviewed footage alone. Mia glanced up from her monitor, her expression guarded. "About what?" she asked, though she knew exactly what he meant. William leaned forward, his gaze intense. "About us," he replied, his voice steady but carrying a hint of vulnerability. Mia's pulse quickened. "There is no us," she said, her tone firmer than she felt. "Not officially, anyway," William countered, a faint smile playing on his lips. Mia's eyes dropped to her hands, which were trembling slightly. "The contract forbids it," she whispered, stating the obvious but voicing her deepest fear. William reached across the desk, his fingers brushing hers. "Contracts can be renegotiated," he said, his touch sending a shiver through her. "Or ignored," Mia replied, though her resistance was weakening. "I'm not asking you to ignore it," William said, his voice softening. "I'm asking if it's worth fighting for." Mia's breath caught in her throat. "You're asking me to risk everything," she said, her voice breaking. William nodded. "And I'm telling you it's worth the risk." The moment stretched between them, charged with the weight of his words. Before either could speak further, the director's voice crackled over the intercom. 5 minutes. To wrap the scene, William withdrew his hand, the moment shattered but not forgotten. That night, as Mia reviewed footage alone in the editing room, she paused on a clip from weeks earlier, the first time William had thanked her for capturing an authentic moment. How much had changed since then? She replayed the clip, noticing the subtle shift in his expression, the way his eyes had lingered on her just a fraction longer than polite professionalism dictated. "This is madness," she whispered to the empty room, though her heart betrayed her words. The following day brought a production meeting where the producers reviewed the final episode script. William's final proposal, a grand gesture toward contestant. Number 15 was outlined in detail, but his mind was elsewhere. During a break, he caught Mia's eye across the room. She gave him an almost imperceptible nod, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken conversation hanging between them. That evening, William arrived at Mia's apartment unannounced, a single red rose in hand. "I had to see you," he said, his voice raw with emotion. Mia stood in the doorway, her uniform still marked with the day's work. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her fingers brushing the rose's petals. "I know," William replied, stepping closer, "but I couldn't wait any longer." The air between them crackled with tension. Mia's gaze dropped to his lips, then quickly away. "This changes everything," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. William's hand found her cheek, his touch tender. "Some things are worth the risk," he said, his breath warm against her skin. Mia closed her eyes, her resolve crumbling. "I've wanted this since the first time you noticed me," she admitted, her honesty disarming. William's lips met hers in a gentle, fleeting kiss, a moment of connection that defied contracts and consequences. They pulled apart reluctantly, their foreheads resting together. "What now?" Mia asked, her voice trembling. William smiled, a mixture of fear and hope in his eyes. "Now we figure it out." The following morning brought the show's final filming day. William's interactions with the contestants were polite but distant, his mind preoccupied with the growing storm of his feelings. During a brief moment alone with Mia, he pressed the rose into her hand, a silent promise. "Tonight," he mouthed, his eyes holding hers. Mia nodded, her heart racing. The day's filming concluded with William delivering his final scripted lines to contestant number 15. As the cameras rolled, he realized with startling clarity that none of it mattered anymore. The real story, the one worth telling, wasn't unfolding in front of the cameras. It was the one happening behind them, where a quiet heroine and a wealthy bachelor had found an authentic connection in the most unexpected of places. The final episode's filming arrived with a sense of inevitability that hung heavily over the set. William's interactions with the contestants had grown increasingly mechanical, his mind preoccupied by the growing storm of his feelings for Mia. During a particularly tense scene where contestant number 15 confessed her love amidst a backdrop of rose petals and soft lighting, William's attention kept drifting to Mia's camera station. He noticed the way her brow furrowed as she adjusted an angle, her focus unwavering despite the chaos around them. "You're distracted, contestant number 15 whispered during a commercial break, her voice carrying a hint of concern. William forced a smile. "Just tired," he replied, though they both knew it was a lie. That evening, during the final editing session, William reviewed the footage with a mixture of regret and resolve. The contestants' passionate declarations once so compelling now felt hollow compared to the genuine connection he'd built with Mia. "These scenes are missing something," he said suddenly, surprising the editors. The lead producer looked up from her monitor. "Missing what?" she asked, her tone defensive. William gestured to the screen where contestant number 15's confession was playing. "It lacks authenticity," he replied, his voice steady. "It feels rehearsed, performative." The producer frowned. "It's exactly what our audience expects." William shook his head. "Our audience deserves more than expectations. They deserve truth." The room fell silent as the weight of his words settled. Mia, observing from the corner, felt her heart race. William's gaze shifted to her, their eyes locking in a moment of silent understanding. "Maybe it's time to change the narrative," he said, his voice carrying a quiet determination. The producers exchanged uneasy glances. "We're not changing the narrative." "At this stage," the director said firmly. William leaned forward, his expression resolute. "Then I'm afraid I can't deliver the ending you've planned." The room erupted in protests, but William held his ground. "I won't fake something I don't feel," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. The producers realized too late that they'd lost control of the narrative. The final episode's script had always called for William to propose to contestant number 15 during a sweeping beachside scene, complete with a custom-made ring and a tearful acceptance. But as the crew set up for the scene, William requested a private moment with the contestant. "I can't go through with this," he said gently, his regret genuine. Contestant number 15's eyes widened in shock. "But the whole country is waiting for this moment," she whispered. William took her hands in his. "I'm sorry. I've realized that the connection I thought we had pales in comparison to something real I've found elsewhere." The contestant's expression shifted from confusion to understanding. "It's her, isn't it?" she asked, her voice soft. William nodded. "I'm sorry," he repeated. The contestant smiled sadly. "Go be happy," she said, releasing his hands. As the crew prepared for the final scene, William approached the director. "I'm making a change to the script," he announced, his tone brooking no argument. The director's face paled. "You can't do this. We have sponsors, contracts. I'm doing it for the same reason you greenlit this show, to deliver an authentic narrative." William interrupted. "This is the most authentic moment we've had." The crew fell silent as William stepped onto the beach set, the golden hour lighting casting a warm glow over the scene. Contestant number 15 stood at the designated mark, her nervous smile betraying her uncertainty. William took a deep breath and began his rehearsed speech, but halfway through he stopped. The crew held their breath. "I can't say these words," he said, his voice carrying across the set. Contestant number 15's eyes widened in surprise. "I'm sorry," William continued, his gaze meeting hers with genuine sorrow. "I've realized that my heart isn't here. It's with someone who's shown me what real connection looks like, someone who's been there from the beginning, capturing every moment with honesty and grace." The crew began to murmur, but William's words kept flowing. "This show was Always about finding authentic love. What I've found isn't here. It's behind the scenes, in someone who's taught me that real love isn't performative. It's quiet, observant, and completely genuine. The cameras captured his confession, the moment hanging in the air as the reality of his words sank in. Contestant number 15 stepped forward, her earlier hurt melting into understanding. "I wish you happiness," she said, her voice steady. William nodded, his gratitude evident. As the cameras continued to roll, the director glanced at Mia, who stood frozen at her station, her camera capturing every raw emotion unfolding before her. The producer's warning echoed in her mind, but in that moment, none of it mattered. William's public refusal to fake a proposal stunned the audience and crew alike. The show's carefully constructed narrative had been upended, and in its place stood a moment of unexpected authenticity, a moment that would become the season's most talked about scene. Backstage, Mia stood alone in the equipment storage room, her breath coming in ragged gasps. William's words replayed in her mind, each syllable igniting hope she'd tried to suppress. Before she could talk herself out of it, she stepped into the hallway, her presence immediately drawing William's attention. Their eyes met across the bustling set, and in that moment, everything unspoken between them dissolved. William excused himself from the producer's increasingly frantic questions and made his way to Mia, his stride purposeful. "You did it," she whispered, her voice trembling. William took her hands in his touch gentle but firm. "I had to. For us," he said, his gaze holding hers. Mia's eyes welled with tears. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. William smiled, a mixture of fear and hope in his eyes. "Now we figure it out, together." The crew buzzed around them, oblivious to the quiet revolution that had just taken place. The producers, realizing the gravity of what had just transpired, gathered in an emergency meeting. "He just ruined the finale," the lead producer said, her voice tight with frustration. The director, however, surprised everyone by speaking up. "No, he just gave us the most authentic moment this show has ever had." And with that, the producers began to understand that sometimes the best stories aren't planned, they're lived. The beach, set, bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun, was a picturesque backdrop for what was supposed to be the show's crowning moment. Contestant number 15 stood at the designated mark, her elegant white gown contrasting beautifully with the deep blue of the Pacific. The cameras were positioned perfectly. The lighting crew had adjusted the final gels, and the audience waited in breathless anticipation. William stood at the center of it all, a custom-designed ring box in his pocket, a ring he now knew he couldn't give to her. As the director called for quiet on the set, William took a deep breath and began his rehearsed speech. "Over the past 10 weeks, I've had the privilege of getting to know 20 incredible women," he started, his voice steady, but carrying a weight of sincerity the producers hadn't anticipated. "Each of you has brought something unique and valuable to my life." Contestant number 15's smile wavered slightly, her uncertainty palpable. William paused, his gaze shifting to the contestants arrayed behind her. But as this journey progressed, I realized something profound. The camera's close-up lens captured the flicker of emotion in his eyes. The connection I thought I was building. It wasn't the real thing. Gasps rippled through the live studio audience. Contestant number 15's hand flew to her mouth. "What are you saying?" she whispered, her voice trembling. William stepped closer, his expression soft but resolute. "I'm saying that my heart isn't here, not in the way it needs to be for this to be real." The contestant's eyes welled with tears. "But we've shared so many meaningful moments," she said, her voice breaking. William's hand found hers, his touch gentle. "Those moments were real between us, but my heart, it belongs to someone else." The set erupted in murmurs. The producer's booth buzzed with frantic activity as the director shouted into the intercom, "What are you doing?" William glanced at the producer's camera, his expression unapologetic. "I'm doing what's right," he said, his voice carrying across the set. Contestant number 15 stepped back, her tears flowing freely now. "Who is it?" she asked, her voice a mixture of hurt and curiosity. William's gaze shifted to the crew members surrounding them, his eyes searching the familiar faces until they found Mia. She stood frozen at her station, her camera still rolling as she captured the most unexpected moment of her career. William's heart raced as he walked toward her, the crew parting like the Red Sea before Moses. "It's her," he said, his voice steady. Mia Garcia, the camerawoman who's been here from the beginning. The studio audience erupted in a mixture of gasps and applause. Contestants exchanged shocked glances. Producers scrambled to contain the damage, and Mia stood rooted to the spot, her camera still in hand. "Mia," William said, stopping a few feet away from her, "from the first day you captured my uncertainty during the opening scenes, I saw something in you, a quiet authenticity that this show often—" His words poured out, a river released from a dam. "You've documented every moment of this journey with honesty and grace. You've seen through the artifice to the real emotions beneath. And somewhere along the way, you became the real connection I'd been searching for." Mia's tears fell freely now, her camera abandoned as she met his gaze. "I can't give this ring to someone else when my heart belongs to you," William continued, his voice breaking slightly. "I won't fake a proposal for the sake of ratings or contracts or any of the artificial constructs we've built here." The crew around them fell silent, their earlier chaos replaced by a collective stillness. Mia stepped forward, her movements deliberate. "You're ruining everything," she whispered, her voice trembling. William smiled through his own tears. "No, in making it real." Their eyes locked, and in that moment, the world around them faded. The cameras continued to roll, capturing what would become the season's most iconic scene, a wealthy bachelor choosing authenticity over artifice, passion over protocol. Backstage, the producers huddled in emergency meetings, their carefully laid plans in disarray. Hez destroying the finale. The lead producer shouted. The director, however, studied the footage with a new perspective. "Hayes giving us the most authentic moment in reality TV history," he said quietly. The producers' debate raged on, but on set, a new reality was taking shape. William and Mia stood together, their hands intertwined as the cameras captured the raw emotion of the moment. "What happens now?" Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. William's gaze held hers, his resolve unwavering. "Now we write our own story," he said, his words carrying a promise that transcended the show's manufactured narrative. The studio audience, initially shocked, erupted into applause, their standing ovation a testament to the power of genuine emotion over scripted perfection. Contestant number 15 approached them, her earlier hurt replaced by genuine happiness. "I hope you both find happiness," she said, embracing Mia briefly before withdrawing. William nodded his gratitude, the weight of his decision lifting as he realized he'd finally found what he'd been searching for, not in the curated world of Millionaire's Choice, but in the authenticity of the woman who documented it all. As the cameras continued to roll, capturing the unprecedented moment, William turned to Mia. "Will you walk away from all this with me?" he asked, his voice filled with vulnerability and hope. Mia's answer, when it came, was whispered but carried across the set on the evening breeze. "Always." The producers, realizing the gravity of what had just transpired, gathered in an emergency meeting. "He just ruined the finale," the lead producer said, her voice tight with frustration. The director, however, surprised everyone by speaking up. No, he just gave us the most authentic moment this show has ever had, and with that, the producers began to understand that sometimes the best stories aren't planned, they're lived. The chaos following William's public refusal to fake a proposal was nothing short of unprecedented. The studio audience, initially stunned into silence, erupted into a mixture of applause and confused murmurs. Contestants exchanged shocked glances, some appearing hurt while others displayed quiet understanding. The producer's booth descended into a storm of activity as team members scrambled to contain the damage. "Cut the cameras," the lead producer shouted, though her order came too late. The moment had already been captured in all its raw, unscripted glory. William stood at the center of the beach set, his gaze locked with Mia's as the crew around them began to realize the magnitude of what had just happened. Mia, her camera still in hand, found herself at the heart of the unexpected drama. "What do you think you're doing?" the director demanded, rushing onto the set. William turned to face him, his expression calm but resolute. "I'm shutting down the show," he said, his voice steady. The director's face paled. "You can't just shut this down. We have contracts, sponsors." "I'm terminating my participation effective immediately," William interrupted, his tone brooking no argument. "This show was predicated on finding authentic love. What I've found isn't here on this beach, it's behind the cameras, in someone who's shown me what real connection looks like." The director's expression shifted from anger to resignation as he realized the battle was already lost. "You're throwing away everything we've built," he said, his voice tight with frustration. William nodded. "I'm choosing something real over everything we've built." The crew began to disperse, some in shock, others whispering excitedly about the unprecedented turn of events. Contestant number 15 approached William, her earlier hurt replaced by genuine concern. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice soft. William smiled. "More sure than I've been about anything in years." Mia stood nearby, her heart racing as she processed the gravity of William's decision. She'd always valued her work, her professionalism, but what William had just done, what they'd just done together, transcended career and contract. It was a leap of faith into the unknown, and she was terrified yet inexplicably hopeful. The producers gathered in an emergency meeting, their earlier plans in disarray. "Has destroyed our ratings guarantee," the lead producer raged. The network executive on the phone call shared her frustration. "We need damage control immediately." The director, however, surprised everyone by advocating for transparency. "We tell the audience what happened," he said, his tone firm. "We air the footage of William's decision and explain that sometimes real life intervenes in unexpected ways." The producers were skeptical, but the director's argument held weight. "People will respect his honesty. It might even garner us more viewers than the planned proposal." Reluctantly, the producers agreed to the unconventional approach. That evening, as the network prepared to air the unexpected climax, William and Mia stood together in the no-empty studio. The beach set, once bustling with activity, lay silent under the artificial stars. "Are you ready for this?" William asked, his voice gentle. Mia nodded, her hand tightening around his. "As ready as he'll ever be." Their moment was interrupted by the director's voice over the intercom. "We're going live in 5 minutes. The country's waiting to see what happens next." William and Mia exchanged a glance, their resolve strengthening. As the cameras rolled one last time, the director addressed the audience with unprecedented honesty. "Tonight's episode didn't go as planned. Our host, William Roberts, made a surprising and heartfelt decision that we believe deserves to be shared authentically. What you're about to see is unscripted, unfiltered, and completely real." The footage rolled, capturing William's public refusal to fake a proposal, his confession of feelings for Mia, and their decision to prioritize authenticity over the show's manufactured narrative. The audience responded with a mixture of shock admiration, and overwhelming support, the social media trends immediately lighting up with hashtags like Love Unscripted and Behind the Scenes Romance. The producers, monitoring the real-time reactions, realized with surprise that the honest conclusion had resonated more deeply than any planned finale could have. William and Mia, meanwhile, stood together in the quiet aftermath, surrounded by the set that had once been their entire world. "We did it," Mia whispered, her voice filled with awe. William smiled. "We rewrote the script." Their hands remained intertwined, a silent promise of the new chapter they were about to begin, one written not by producers or contracts, but by their own hearts. As the cameras powered down for the final time, William pressed a gentle kiss to Mia's forehead. "No more scripts," he murmured. "Just us." Mia's smile was radiant. "Just us." The crew began to dismantle the set around them, the bustling activity a stark contrast to the quiet moment shared by the two people at the center of it all. William's decision to shut down the show had not only stunned the audience and crew, but had also reignited a conversation about authenticity in media, conversation he and Mia would continue to navigate as they stepped into their unexpected future. Together, the network's decision to air the unscripted conclusion of Millionaire's Choice transformed what could have been a public relations disaster into a cultural phenomenon. Viewers tuned in not to see a rehearsed proposal, but to witness a genuine confession of love, a wealthy bachelor choosing authenticity over artifice in a world increasingly hungry for real connection. As the footage rolled, William's public confession unfolded with all the raw emotion of a moment unplanned yet inevitable. From the moment Mia captured my uncertainty during the opening scenes, I saw something in her quiet authenticity that this show often, he said, his voice steady but carrying the weight of vulnerability. She's documented every moment of this journey with honesty and grace. She's seen through the artifice to the real emotions beneath. And somewhere along the way, she became the real connection I'd been searching for. The studio audience, initially, stunned into silence, erupted into applause and tears, their standing ovation a testament to the power of genuine emotion over scripted perfection. Mia stood frozen at her station, her camera still in hand, as she captured the most unexpected moment of her career. Her professional demeanor crumbled as William approached her, his gaze locking onto hers with unwavering intensity. "I can't give this ring to someone else when my heart belongs to you," he continued, his voice breaking slightly. "I won't fake a proposal for the sake of ratings or contracts or any of the artificial constructs we've built here." The cameras captured every tear, every tremor in his voice, and every stolen glance between them, a masterclass in unscripted emotion that captivated millions. Backstage, the producers huddled in emergency meetings, their carefully laid plans in disarray. "Hez destroying the finale," the lead producer shouted. The director, however, studied the footage with a new perspective. "Hez giving us the most authentic moment in reality TV history," he said quietly. The producers' debate raged on, but on set, a new reality was taking shape. William and Mia stood together, their hands intertwined as the cameras continued to roll. "What happens now?" Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. William's gaze held hers, his resolve unwavering. "Now we write our own story," he said, his words carrying a promise that transcended the show's manufactured narrative. Contestant number 15 approached them, her earlier hurt replaced by genuine happiness. "I hope you both find happiness," she said, embracing Mia briefly before withdrawing. William nodded his gratitude, the weight of his decision lifting as he realized he'd finally found what he'd been searching for, not in the curated world of Millionaire's Choice, but in the authenticity of the woman who documented it all. As the cameras continued to capture the unprecedented moment, William turned to Mia, "Will you walk away from all this with me?" he asked, his voice filled with vulnerability and hope. Mia's answer, when it came, was whispered but carried across the set on the evening breeze. Always. The footage of their confession and decision to prioritize authenticity over the show's manufactured narrative became a cultural touchstone, sparking conversations about the value of genuine connection in an increasingly performative world. Viewers took to social media in droves, with hashtags like Love Unscripted and Behind the Scenes Romance trending globally. Critics hailed the moment as a watershed for reality television, a rare instance of art imitating life in the most honest way possible. William and Mia, now thrust into the spotlight they'd once documented, found themselves at the center of a narrative they hadn't planned, but had lived with unflinching honesty. In the days following the broadcast, interviews and behind-the-scenes features painted a picture of a relationship built on mutual respect and quiet moments rather than grand gestures. Mia's quiet demeanor and William's unexpected vulnerability resonated with audiences starved for authenticity. "It wasn't about the cameras anymore," William said in one interview. "It was about seeing someone who truly understood me, flaws and all." Mia, when asked about the experience, replied with characteristic understatement, "We were just doing our jobs. But sometimes your job introduces you to the person you never knew you were looking for." The public confession had not only altered the trajectory of their lives, but had also reignited discussions about the role of honesty in media conversation that extended far beyond the confines of a single reality show. As William and Mia navigated their newfound fame and the complexities of a relationship forged under the most unusual circumstances, they remained grounded by the authenticity that had brought them together. "We're not perfect," William admitted, during a rare joint interview, "but we're real, and that's worth more than any script could ever provide." Their story, a testament to the power of genuine human connection in a world often dominated by artifice, became an unexpected love letter to authenticity, inspiring viewers to seek connections that existed beyond the frame. In the quiet days following the broadcast of the unprecedented finale, William and Mia retreated from the chaos of media attention and public scrutiny. They found solace in the very places that had once been their professional battlegrounds, now transformed into sanctuaries of privacy and genuine connection. Their first real date wasn't a grand gesture, but a simple walk through Griffith Park, the same location where Mia had often tested her camera equipment before filming began. "Remember when I was setting up here weeks ago?" she asked, pausing by a bench overlooking the city. William nodded, his gaze soft. "I remember noticing how at peace you seemed, even amidst the chaos of preparation." Mia smiled. "I never expected my peace would lead to this." Their conversation flowed easily, uninterrupted by production schedules or crew calls. William listened intently as Mia spoke about her childhood fascination with photography, a passion that had led her to document everything from family gatherings to high school plays. "I always saw the world through a lens," she said, her eyes distant with memory. "Even as a kid, I felt like the camera helped me make sense of things." William's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. "And now it's helped you make sense of me," he said, his voice gentle. Mia's laughter was light. "Still working on that?" Their connection, freed from the constraints of the show, began to flourish in ways neither had anticipated. They discovered shared interests in documentary films and indie music, spending evenings exploring Los Angeles' lesser-known cinemas and record stores. William, who had once found comfort only in meticulously planned environments, learned to appreciate the beauty in spontaneous moments, a skill Mia had honed through years of capturing life as it happened. During a weekend getaway to Big Sur, they rented a cozy cabin overlooking the Pacific, its isolation a world away from the scrutinized existence they'd left behind. "No cameras," Mia noted with a smile as they unpacked. William wrapped his arms around her from behind. No cameras, just us. Their time together was filled with the small gestures that had been missing from William's previous relationships, the way Mia would absent-mindedly hum while cooking, or how William would leave notes of appreciation around the cabin. It was in these quiet moments that their love story truly began to take shape, a narrative that required no audience, no script, and no artificial lighting. "This is what I've been missing," William said one evening as they watched the sunset from a cliffside path. Mia leaned into him. "Me too." They returned to Los Angeles, refreshed and more certain of their path forward. The media storm surrounding their relationship gradually settled, aided by their deliberate choice to keep their personal life private. Interviews became fewer, public appearances less frequent. Instead, they focused on building a life together, rooted in the authenticity that had drawn them to each other in the first place. Mia resumed her work in documentary photography, her perspective enriched by the unexpected chapter she'd lived. William, meanwhile, shifted his focus toward philanthropic ventures that aligned with his growing appreciation for genuine human connection. Their worlds, once defined by the artificial boundaries of a reality show set, now merged into something far more meaningful, a love story that had never needed a spotlight to exist. In the end, what began as an unexpected connection behind the cameras evolved into a partnership built on mutual respect, quiet moments, and the kind of authenticity that no production team could ever script. Their journey from reality TV stars to real-life partners became a testament to the power of human connection in its purest form, a story that needed no audience to be valid, no cameras to be real. And as they navigated this new chapter together, William and Mia carried with them the quiet knowledge that sometimes the most extraordinary stories are the ones that happen when the cameras stop rolling. Hey there, amazing people. We've just witnessed a love story that broke all the rules of reality TV, and isn't that the truth about most real love stories? William and Mia showed us that authentic connections can't be scripted, manufactured, or forced into neat little packages. They reminded us that sometimes the person who truly sees us isn't the one in the spotlight, but the one quietly observing, behind the scenes. But wait, what did you think about this unexpected twist? Did you ship William and Mia from the beginning, or were you team contestant until the very end? And let's talk about that finale. How many of you screamed at your screens when William refused to fake the proposal? We want to hear every thought, every reaction, every "I told you so" in the comments below. Also, how many of you expected this ending? Be honest. And for those who didn't, how did it change your perspective on reality TV love stories? Did it make you question everything you thought you knew about dating shows? Share your hot takes, your theories, and your favorite moments from the series. And before you go, guess what? There's more where this came from. If you loved this story of authenticity beating artificiality, stay tuned for our next deep dive into unexpected love and the beautiful mess of real human connections. Hit that follow button so you never miss a beat, and remember, the best love stories are the ones that can't be planned.